Today I'd like to do a quick jazz guitar lesson, mostly talking about combining bass lines and chords and practicing a swing feel. Jazz to me is 99% swing. So in order to really play jazz well and authentically, I think it's really important to have a good swing feel. And that's something that, it's kind of hard to work on if you're always working on your soloing. So it's easier to work on getting a swing feel if you practice bass line and chords and melodies too, combining them all in the concept that I'm going to show you today. Okay, so what we're going to do is to take one chord and play it all the way up the neck and connect it with scale tones. Okay, so we'll just look at an F minor 7 chord first of all. In an F minor 7 chord, for those of you that know your theory, it's F the root, the flat third is A flat, the fifth is a C, and the seventh, in this case the flat seventh, is E flat. So it's F, A flat, C, E flat. Those are the four notes that you really gotta know. The more you know them, the more you'll be able to change the notes and get a little more colorful voicing on the guitar, which we'll talk about in this lesson as well. But anyway, those four notes are the basic notes of an F minor 7 chord. There's other notes that we can add later for more color, like the ninth, the G, or a B flat, which is the fourth, also known as the 11th. Okay. And we call those notes tensions, which is not a name that I like because tension implies a kind of nervousness, I should say, right? But a tension is actually, in musical terms, a tension is actually a color, another color added to the chord, which doesn't destroy the basic character of the chord. It's like a chocolate cake. You add things on the top that, strawberries or whatever, This is the way I teach music theory, is using the chocolate cake analysis. If you have a chocolate cake, and that's your basic chord is your chocolate cake, but then when you add other things like a strawberry, blueberries on the top, then you're adding other flavors, tastes, but it's still a chocolate cake, okay? So that's the way I like to look at chords and tensions. So I'm not going to get too much into this kind of theory, in this lesson, but it will come up just a little bit. So, and you'll see the result of being able to use a little bit of theory that we know in this regard as far as tensions are concerned, and get a few more hip colors to come out, from the chord that you're going to play along with the bass line. Okay, so we're going to start with the F minor chord, and everyone knows F minor 7, Now these kind of chords are, as Joe Pass used to say, they're cowboy chords, We don't want to use those in jazz too much because there's not a lot of color and they're very bland, Nothing wrong with the chord, but, playing those, there's nothing wrong with playing those chords, but when we're playing jazz, we want to have a little more colorful, voicing. But not even talking about chord, colors, tensions, or per se, the basic chord tones we want to play that we just talked about a minute ago, F, A flat, C, and E flat. And it's very simple. On the guitar, it's just one fret across the fingerboard there. And I'm playing it a certain way here. I'm playing it with the second finger in the bass. It's a little bit hard because the head gets in the way. But that chord, very easy to play it once you play it away from the nut, okay? But anyway, try and play it down there like that. You can do it with one finger across like that. Okay, we can let that one go, but it's a good idea to get used to that kind of fingering, okay? So what we've got there is the root F, A flat on the third string, C on the second string, E flat on the fourth string, F, A flat, C, E flat, F minor 7, right there, okay? Now, if you only know that chord, okay, then you're not really going to be able to play bass lines and chords all the way up the neck. You want to be able to know many, many F minor 7 chords, okay? And on the guitar, it's very easy to remember because we can see the shapes. You know, we can actually see the notes in front of our eyes and deduce, you know, what's going on there if you know the fingerboard really well, meaning if you know the names of the notes of the fingerboard. And that's probably the most important thing if you want to learn to play jazz. The quickest way to learn to play jazz is to know the fingerboard and, you know, learn a little bit of theory and why things sound the way they do, something that you heard someone play. Why does it sound so cool? You know, what's going on there? And you get this kind of analytical approach of you know, music theory, and it works for you as far as applying it into your own playing. Okay, it will work. Okay, so in that regard, what we're going to do is we're going to play F minor chords all the way up the neck, but the notes are basically going to stay the same. They might be in different orders. For example, F is in the root down here. Now, if we go up the neck according to the scale that we're going to talk about for the bass line, which in this case it's going to be an F Aeolian scale, which means the sixth note of the scale is flatted in relation to a major scale where the sixth is natural. Okay, so in that regard, it's going to be an F Aeolian scale is the technical name we're going to use, but don't worry about that. The point being that those notes are okay. So if you verbalize it, it's F G A flat, B flat, C D flat, E flat, F. Okay. Now, this is kind of a wild card note in the scale is the D flat, which is the Aeolian scale I just mentioned a minute ago, or the D natural, which is the natural sixth, which is Dorian. Okay, both of them are possible in this exercise. Actually, we're going to be playing a blues chord progression, so to speak, where we're going to go into the B flat chord later on. So in that chord itself is a D flat, being the flat third. The D flat is in that chord. So as a commonality issue is concerned, you can play the D flat within this F minor scale that we're going to use. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I play the D natural. It gives you a little bit of out kind of sound, you know, because it's not really in the blues, scale itself. Because we're going to go to the B flat, but that gets a little bit too technical. Just follow me as I talk about the chords first of all, and we'll talk about that extra note later. Okay. So anyway, A flat, and then the second chord is this is F minor 7, and the second chord is also F minor 7. It's the exact same notes of the chord. They're just in a different order. So it's root is here, F, A flat, C, E flat. Now some people might look at that and say, oh, it's an A flat sixth major chord, which it is. So the relationship between an A flat sixth chord and an F minor 7 chord, they're exactly the same notes. The bass note is different. That's the only difference. You might want to put that in the back of your mind, you know, and a minor 7 chord is also the same chord as a major sixth chord, which is a flat third away. It sounds very mathematical, doesn't it? I guess it is in some way as far as information goes. You remember all these, you know, theorems and when you study math and everything. Well, you learn these relationships when you study music theory as well. And sometimes they come in handy, you know. But it doesn't really matter. The point being that the notes of the F minor 7 chord also occur here. Just the bass note is different. But that's okay, because we're going to be moving the bass up and down the neck anyway. So this is what we want. Okay, we don't want all the chords to have a root, F, the root in the bass. You'd be limited to these kind of, you know, these kind of chords. We're going to go from there. And next chord is very simple. A lot of you guys might even know the chord. It's a F minor 9. a lot of times, a lot of people use it in bossa. You know, it's got the. Okay. Well, that chord, F minor ninth, we can use the sixth string to play the bass, the fifth in the bass. Okay, so the bass line is all the way up the sixth string, and we're going to use that chord as the fifth of the fifth bass line, so bass note. So it's okay. Next chord will be the flat seventh of the F minor 7, which is an E flat. Now in this case, we have E flat, and this finger falls very nicely on the C and the F, which is part of the chord, right? Now we would want to usually have an A flat, which would be here on the second string. But as far as the bass line is concerned, plopping this chord down on the bass line, you can do it, but it's a little bit tricky. You know, as you're flipping the fingers around. What I like to do is to go from the F minor ninth and then keep the same bass fingering. Instead of playing the A flat here, A flat is moved up to the 11th, which is a B flat. And it's got more color to it. So that's one of those tension notes I was talking about. That's with the chocolate cake with the strawberry on the top. Well, this is B flat is the strawberry. It's still an F minor chord, even though we're using it as an F minor chord, even though the flat third is not in the chord. Okay? Both are possible. I like this one. Okay, and then the last chord is the octave that was played down here. Now, we're going to connect them together, and you're going to find that we don't have enough notes within the scale to play a 2-measure bass line, because the scale has 7 notes. But a 2-measure bass line needs 8 notes, right? Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to add a chromatic note in there. So we'll find that at the end of the line. So we start off with the F, and then we're going to connect it to the second chord via a G. So it's... Okay. The next chord is with the C in the bass. We're going to connect A flat and the C with the B flat. So it's... So we got the whole thing. Okay. Notice I'm playing bass chord, bass chord. I'm not playing. There's no groove with that. And this is where you learn how to swing, is when you've got... You're playing the chord and the bass separately. Okay, so it starts off with the bass and the chord. Okay. Now, the next chord was the E flat, which had the 11th on the top. Love that chord. Now, to connect the minor ninth chord with the C in the bass and the E flat, we got the D. Or D flat. Either one is okay. And that's what I was talking a minute ago. One is a Dorian kind of sound, one is an Aeolian type of sound. Both are okay. Let's go for the Dorian. What the heck? Sounds kind of cool. Right? You can go D flat. Okay? It sounds a little more, it stands out to me, the note. The D natural is a little more smoother into the E flat bass, flat 7, F minor 7 chord. So even though E flat is in the bass, we're still using it as an F minor 7 chord. Okay, now that chromatic note I was talking about comes right now, and then we hit the octave. Because that note is going to be the 4th beat of the second measure. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'll turn off the mic so you hear the guitar. Okay. So I went up and then went back down again, okay? Now, the trick to doing that is when you're playing a chord, whatever chord it is, now we're starting at the root, and then you've got the second chord, which is on the A flat. In between those two chords, you have the scale tone, right? When you're playing the scale bass note only, there's no chord on there, right? It gives you time to think about the shape of the next chord. So before you play the next chord, you should be thinking about that shape, or it'll just be a split second before you actually play it, but it's when you're playing this G bass note, for example. And when I'm playing this note, I'm thinking, oh, the next chord is this shape in my head. So, okay. And then before I play that chord with the C in the bass, that bass note is occurring. So that's when I think about the next chord. So it's think about the next chord, 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 think about the next chord. Okay? And that's how you're able to play. Now, do you notice another thing? Now I'm just playing the bass line only with this finger. That the whole bass line is just played with this finger. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Okay, so that's one little trick that you can kind of remember, that you're just going to play all the bass notes and chords with this second finger. Okay, and as I just did a minute ago, you can just kind of zero in and centralize on one area. You know, you just the two chords, repeating them, connecting them together. Or you can go up. Go up further. And go up further.